All right, folks, how you doing? Welcome back. This is part 4 of Mars, Atlantis, and the Hollow Earth. So let's just get right into it. Disclaimer, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Da 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 da. So in this presentation, we're going into The Biggest Secret by everyone's favorite conspiracy theorist, David Icke. Indoctrination. It says much for humanity's level of indoctrination that to speak of extraterrestrial life is to appear cranky, yet to dismiss it and suggest that life has only emerged on this tiny planet is considered credible. You only have to consider the amazing structures that abounded in the ancient world to see that an advanced race existed then. We are told that only people primitive in comparison to modern humans lived in these times, but that is patently ludicrous. All over the planet are fantastic structures built thousands of years ago, which could only have been created with technology better than we have today. Gods, plural. The knowledge which allowed wonders like the Great Pyramid at Giza and other amazing creations to be built with such precision and scale came from an advanced race. This race is described as the gods in the Old Testament texts and other works of antiquity. When the word God is used in the Old Testament, it is often translated from a word which means gods, plural. Elohim and Adonai are two examples. An influx of knowledge from outside this planet would explain so many of the mysteries that official history greets with a deafening silence. The original meaning of Genesis. The Old Testament is a classic example of the religious recycling which has spawned all the religions. So when you are looking for the original meaning of Genesis and the story of Adam, you have to go back to the Sumerian accounts. Some speak of great heat which boiled the sea, of mountains breathing fire, the disappearance of the sun and moon and the darkness that followed, the raining down of blood, ice, and rock, the earth flipping over, the sky falling, the rising and sinking of lands, the loss of a great continent. Well, actually, two great continents, the coming of the ice, and virtually all of them describe a fantastic flood, a wall of water which swept across the earth. I often wonder when I listen to David Icke, does he actually know what the meaning of the word fantastic actually is? Because he seems to pretty much use it out of context all the time. Like, this is a fantastic conspiracy, or this was a fantastic disaster. I'm like, David, do you know what that word really actually means, mate? But anyway, that's maybe just a nitpick. Anyway, pole switch. Old Chinese texts describe how the pillars supporting the sky crumbled, of how the sun, moon, and stars poured down in the northwest, where the sky became low. Rivers, seas, and oceans rushed to the southeast, where the earth sank, and a great conflagration was quenched by a raging flood. In America, the Pawnee Indians tell the same story of a time when the north and south polar stars changed places and went to visit each other. The earth turned over. North American traditions refer to great clouds appearing in a great heat so powerful that the waters boiled. The Greenland Eskimos told early missionaries that long ago the earth turned over. Brazilian myth describes how the heavens burst and fragments fell down, killing everything and everyone as heaven and earth changed places. And the Hopi Indians record that the earth was rent in great chasms, and water covered everything except one narrow ridge of mud. Atlantis and Lemuria. All of this closely correlates with the legends of Atlantis and Mu or Lemuria, two vast continents. See, I told you it was two. One in the Atlantic and the other in the Pacific, which many people believe were ruled by highly advanced races. The continents are said to have disappeared under the sea. leaving only islands like the Azores. Atlantis was described by Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher. The Mid Atlantic Ridge. Official history dismisses Plato's contention that such a continent existed, but there is geological support for his basic theme. The Azores, part of Atlantis, lie on the mid Atlantic ridge, connected to a fractured line that encircles the planet. The mid Atlantic ridge is one of the foremost areas for earthquakes and volcanoes. Both the Azores and the Canary Islands were subject to widespread volcanic activity in the time Plato suggested for the end of Atlantis. The Bermuda Triangle. Because, no story about Atlantis would be complete without the Bermuda Triangle. The so called Bermuda Triangle between Bermuda, southern Florida, has long been associated with Atlantis. It is also steeped in legends of disappearing ships and aircraft. Submerged buildings, walls, roads, and stone circles like Stonehenge, even pyramids, have been located within the triangle. Some other facts: the Himalayas, the Alps, and the Andes only reached their present height about 11,000 years ago. Colossal geological upheavals. Lake Titicaca on the Peru-Bolivian border is today the highest navigable lake in the world at some 12,500 feet. Around 11,000 years ago, much of that region was at sea level. There is increasing acceptance that the Earth has suffered some colossal geological upheavals. There was certainly an enormous cataclysm on the Earth around 11,000 BC, which destroyed the advanced civilizations of the high-tech Golden Age, and the date of 13,000 years ago is highly significant to the time we are living through today. Jupiter cometh. Interestingly, it was 13,000 years ago that the Golden Age concluded in cataclysm, and today, with the 13,000-year cycle of darkness reaching its conclusion, there is a rapid global spiritual awakening in the next few years. Brian Desborough is a researcher and scientist. While he worked for a major corporation in the 1960s, their physicists suggested that about 4,800 BC, Jupiter careered into our solar system. The birth of Venus. The outer planets were thrown into disarray, and Jupiter crashed into a planet which orbited between the planets Jupiter and Mars. The physicists said that the remains of this planet became the asteroid belt. Part of Jupiter broke away to become Venus. Then a vast chunk of matter projected into space. It destroyed the atmosphere and life of Mars before it was caught by the Earth's gravitational field. Venus made several orbits of the Earth before its momentum hurled it into its current position. It was those orbits that brought devastation and a tidal wave about 4,800 BC. Before this time, Mars orbited where the Earth is now, and the Earth was much closer to the Sun. Lucifer, light bringer. The brilliant light of Venus as it passed close to the Earth may have led to the idea of Lucifer, the light bringer. Mesopotamian and Central American records do not include Venus in their planetary accounts. There was an obsession with Venus in many cultures, with human sacrifices being made to it. Venus would have been an ice-coated comet, and the ice would have disintegrated when Venus approached the Earth and reached the Roche limit. When two bodies are on collision course, the one with the smallest mass starts to disintegrate. In this case, the ice projected from Venus's surface towards the Earth as it entered the Van Allen belt. The ice ionized, magnetized, and attracted to the Earth's magnetic poles. Immanuel Velikovsky. The Russian Jewish physicist and writer Immanuel Velikovsky caused outrage amongst the scientific establishment in the 1950s by suggesting that the Earth had been through enormous upheavals when Venus, which was then, he said, a comet, careered through this part of the solar system before settling into its present orbit. When Venus was photographed by the Mariner 10 mission, many of Velikovsky's descriptions proved correct, including remnants of a comet-like tail. The Mariner 9 pictures of Mars also supported some of Velikovsky's theories. He said that the comet Venus had collided with Mars as it careered through the solar system, thrown out of orbit. Mars was devastated by these events involving Venus. They felt Mars was thrown out of orbit and followed a highly unstable elliptical orbit which took it between the Earth and the Moon every 56 years. The last of these passes appears to have been about 1500 BC when the great volcano exploded on Santorini and the Minoan civilization on Crete passed into history. In this same period of 1600 to 1500 BC, ocean levels dropped about 20%. Glacial lakes formed in California, and this was most likely the time when the vast lake in the fertile Sahara was emptied and the desert we see today began to be formed. The Mars Pathfinder project. Eventually, Mars settled into its present orbit, but by then life on its surface had been obliterated. Yet again, the evidence on Mars supports all this. The Mars Pathfinder mission found that Martian rocks lack sufficient erosion to have been on the surface for more than 10,000 years. Brian Desborough believes the Earth was once much nearer the Sun than it is today, and that Mars orbited where the Earth now resides. If the deep canyons on Mars's surface were caused by massive torrents of water, there had to have been a warmer climate on Mars, because today it is so cold that water would freeze instantly and the near vacuum atmosphere would make the water instantly vaporize before the Venus cataclysm. So Desborough says that the Earth's closer proximity to the Sun demanded that the first Earth humans were the black races, with the pigmentation to cope with the much fiercer rays of the sun. Ancient skeletons found near Stonehenge and along the west coast of France display characteristics of many female Africans. Desborough says that Mars, then with a climate like ours, had a white race before the Venus cataclysm. His research has convinced him that the white Martians built the pyramids, which have been recorded on Mars, and they went to war with an advanced black race to conquer the Earth. These wars are described in the Hindu Vedas. Circadian rhythm. Fascinatingly, some scientists claim that when white people are immersed in sensory deprivation tanks for long periods, their circadian rhythm has a frequency of 24 hours 40 minutes, which corresponds not to the rotation period of the Earth, but of Mars. This is not the case with non white races who are in tune with the Earth's rotation. Desborough believes that these white races were the highly advanced race known as the Phoenicians or Aryans, and they began the long process of returning to their former technological power after the upheavals which destroyed the surface of their own planet and devastated this one. El Kahira, Mars 2.0. The Phoenicians were certainly the brains behind the Egyptian civilization, at least from the period around 3000 BC, and the Giza Plateau was formerly known as El Kahira, derived from the Arabic noun El Kahir, their name for Mars. I think there is truth in the cataclysmic upheavals the Earth has suffered. Between 11,000 and 1,500 BC, the first one ended the Golden Age and obliterated the high-tech civilizations. The extraterrestrial races either left the planet or survived at high altitudes or by going deep within the Earth, and most did not survive, facing new beginnings. There were those who wished to use their knowledge positively and communicate their information to humanity, and those who sought to hoard the knowledge and use it to manipulate and control. The struggle between these two groups over the use of the same knowledge continues to this very day. As societies recovered from those upheavals of 11,000 BC, the other cataclysms brought more devastation over the thousands of years that followed, and humanity was faced with many new beginnings. A genetic connection. I don't think the Anunnaki of the Sumerian tablets and the white Martians proposed in Brian Desborough's scenario are the same people, although there may well be a genetic connection between them. Putting together the massive evidence, I feel the Anunnaki are a race from a reptile genetic stream. In UFO research, these have become known as reptilians. There were other extraterrestrial races at large on the Earth and still are, as well as the extraterrestrial race which the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, and other ancient texts call the serpent race, the serpent people. The idea of fire breathing dragons and evil serpents, which appear in legends and texts all over the world, could easily originate from the reptilian gods who once operated openly thousands of years ago. These were the serpent people of ancient texts, including the Bible, where the serpent is a regular theme. We have the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and the serpent dragon theme is global. It was the original abode of the first men, they said, before they were tempted by an evil spirit in the form of a serpent to partake of the fruit of the forbidden tree, protected by dragons. There is also the banyan tree under which Krishna sat upon a coiled serpent and bestowed spiritual knowledge on humanity. The ancient Greeks had the islands of the blessed and the garden of Hesperides, in which grew a tree bearing the golden apples of immortality. The garden was protected by a dragon. In the Chinese sacred books, there is a garden in which grew trees bearing the fruit of immortality, guarded by a winged serpent, a dragon. The serpent symbol. In ancient Mexican accounts, their version of the Eve story involves a great male serpent. Another Hindu legend speaks of the sacred mountain of Meru, guarded by a dreadful dragon. Over and over, we see the same theme of sacred places guarded by fearsome dragons, giving spiritual knowledge to humans. As we've seen, the earliest accounts of Assyria, Babylon, Old Testament history, China, Rome, America, Africa, India, and elsewhere features stories of the dragons. The serpent symbol has also been found in ancient Britain, Greece, Malta, Egypt, New Mexico, Peru, and all over the Pacific Islands. Who are they and where do they come from? The Draco system. There are three suggested origins of the Anunnaki reptilian intervention in human affairs. One, they are extraterrestrials. Two, they are interterrestrials who live within the Earth. Three, they manipulate humanity from another dimension by possessing human bodies. Researchers into the reptilian phenomenon conclude that at least some originate in the Draco star constellation. The Draco system includes the star Thurbin, once the North Star by which the Egyptian pyramids are orientated. According to Graham Hancock, Angkor Wat in Cambodia is a replica of the Draco constellation as it would have been in 10,500 BC. The Belt of Orion. This is the time when the Earth and its people, human and extraterrestrial, would have been recovering from the cataclysm of 11,000 BC and rebuilding their civilization. The author and researcher Robert Bauval says that the pyramids at Giza align with the stars on the Belt of Orion as they would have been in 10,500 BC, when Orion was at the lowest point in its cycle. The Orions are another extraterrestrial race operating on this planet, I understand.